this video we are going to discuss what is assembly language. Now in previous video we discussed already what is low level language, and under level language there is a two types of languages are coming. The first is the machine language and second is the assembly language. Now machine language is consist of 0 and 1, which is in the binary form, and it's very difficult to remember and all that, so we have to write the some another language which is very easy for human readable, and that is nothing but the assembly language. So in this video we're going to discuss what are the features and how assembly languages works and what are advantages, disadvantages. So let's start. Now what is assembly language? Now in previous video or last video we also discussed what is low level programming language. Now under this low level programming language it can be divided into two parts. That is, first is the machine language, which was we discussed in previous video. Now machine language can understand the binary code, that is 0 and 1, and it's also called as a object oriented programming. Now the second language is nothing but the assembly language. Now this is also part or type of low level programming language. Now instead of communicate directly with the computer, or machine language is rather directly communicate with the 0 1, but assembly language is quite also communicate with the computer hardware also. Now we know that machine language consists the binary number, but assembly language can consist both. That is, it support for binary also and hexadecimal character also, and assembly language is designed for most of the readable by the humans, as we know that machine language is cannot readable by humans, because machine language is into the 0 and 1 form, so machine languages cannot be easily readable, but assembly language we can read it easily, right? Now we know that computer can understand the machine language, that is 0 and 1, but machine language is too complex by using software development, because it's the binary code, writing the binary code, and if once we write the binary code and suppose different errors are coming or different errors we found, we have to rewrite the whole code. Okay, so it's a very difficult and complex task. So low level language is it's depend on system architecture, so it represent various instructions. Now basically assembly language, it represent the instruction set. Now the instruction set are in the form of symbolic code, or it's also known as the mnemonics, and that all symbolic codes are simple English word we can say, and it can more understandable form, or it can be readable to human also. So instead of using the numbers, that is the binary number 0 and 1, we use the English words, we can use the names, we can use the symbols, some symbolic code, and that is nothing but the instructions code or opcode and mnemonics. So by using all this, that is English word, we write the programs or instructions called as the assembly language. Now each family process has its own instructions for handling various operations, such as getting input from keyboard. Okay, now this is the example. Now in this example you can see, here we use the sub. Now sub is used for the subtraction. Now moving one variable to another variable location, we use some offset, flat, etc. English word. Now these are all the instruction set. You can also refer is as a opcode or instruction set. Call, puts, XOR, these are the operations or some symbolic codes of operations, that is add, and we are going to store this addition into the particular variable. Now this example is written, or these instructions are using some symbols, codes, and opcodes or instructions, or that is also called as mnemonics. Okay, this is the example. So by using all these symbols we can write the instructions. Now let's understand how it's work. Now there is a one utility called as a assembler. Now assembler are used to translate assembly language into the machine code. Now in last video also we discussed machine code, that is it into the zero form, or it is into the binary form, because computer only understand the binary numbers, and for that purpose we have to convert the assembly language or our source code into the object code, because assembly language depend on the machine language. First of all the hardware, then machine language, then the assembly language, and then high level language is there. So machine rate assembly language, but the assembly language is again depend on the machine language, because we need some assembler, and the job of assembler is translate source code to the object code, or it's also called as a machine code or machine language. So that is the working of the assembler. Now let's understand what are the features of assembly language. Now it can use the mnemonics, that is the numerical operations code or symbols. It provides the information of any error in the code. Now this language is help for the using the specify the symbolic code, because here you are using some symbols like addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, etc. So it can represent in the form of symbolic code, very easy to read also. Now data can be declared in decimal notation. Now these are all the features of assembly language. Now let's understand what are the advantages of assembly language. Now assembly language is suitable for writing interrupt service routine rather than the machine code, because writing the all instructions or program into the machine code is very difficult, because it refer 0 and 1 form. So it's very suitable for writing the interrupt service routine and other memory programs. Now it allows complex jobs to run simpler word, because here we are using a English word, some symbolic code, and we can remember it very easily. Now memory is efficient and requires less memory. Now it's faster in speed and execution time is less. It's mainly hardware oriented, because it's vary from it designed specifically for specific architecture. It required less instructions to get the result, and it's not required to keep a track of memory location also. Okay, so these are all the advantages of assembly language. Now let's understand what are the disadvantages of assembly language. The first disadvantage, it takes a lot of time and efforts to write the code for the same, because we are going to understand or recognize what are the symbols are used. It's very complex and difficult for understanding, because we are going to design it in some operating system or specific operation code are here we are using some for the specific architecture. Now syntax is also difficult, because symbols, mnemonics, etc. we have to remember the syntax. Now it has track of probability of program between different computer to architecture. That is, the assembly language is designed specifically for specific hardware architecture. Now, the need of more size of or memory to a computer run the long program written in assembly language, because it stores some variables, some constant, some decimals, some hexadecimals number, some symbol, opcode, etc. So it requires more space or memory for the computer. So this is all about the assembly language. So in this video today we discuss that what is assembly language, and why we require the assembly language, because we know that machine 0 and 1 form, and it's very complex for using software development. So specific family of processor represent some instructions by using assembly language, that is symbolic code, and it more understandable form. So we required assembly language, and it use the uh, it's depend on architecture. That is, assembly language is designed for specific type of architecture here, and by using assembler, the source code is going to translate into the machine code, and then we, so that's why it's assembly language depend on machine code language or machine language. Now features are like it use the mnemonics, that is numerical operation code. It provide the information to error code. Now it's using some symbolic or specific symbols codes here. So this is all about the assembly language. These are all the advantages and disadvantages.